Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in, and really sort of a healing capsule today, meaning I want to kind of come full circle with our viewers and healing, and especially as it correlates to some recent events. Holidays are a time which holds special sentimental significance. We look forward to it. It has its own place, separate and distinct from other areas of our life. And then other times there is a blending of these. Family coming together to celebrate a holiday, family coming together, or work friends coming together to celebrate a birthday, the religious holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, Ramadan. They're now going to, really include a lot of others as America grows. However, what I want to bring together here is really a path of healing. A small town in the northern suburbs of Chicago recently encountered an event of like life-changing proportions to them. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm sure this said individual has gained notoriety, acknowledgement, and national recognition, and maybe in his mind what he considers a good deed. And so, and this has just become extremely a devastating experience that has rocked that area, if not the country. And being knowing and being familiar with this place, it's something where you don't expect situations like this to occur. Quite, for all said reasons. But what I want to help our viewers understand, in a path really of healing of those people who have been witnessed, experienced up close, personal, the immediacy of a trauma, and how it can rock your world, be very unsettling, put you into a shock, a place where you have never been before, a state perhaps that you have not encountered, that extremes an extreme level of terror or fear. And, these are not your everyday or even in a lifetime states that really are healthy to be entered into. And so, as a method of healing, I want to sort of do a quick primer or a capsule episode here for people like that who have been witnessed and had something really like a holiday been very disrupted for them. And instead of it becoming something special, unique, and positive, it's then becomes something completely the opposite when it's at the hands of someone who Dr. Robert Hare would call an intra-species predator. And the problem is that these people blend in, just like the experience that happened over the 4th of July holiday in that small town of Highland Park. This person just, who would have ever guessed? It's the old, we're on like page 0 of the playbook right here. And so for our viewers who have felt like traumatized into these really guttural, terrorizing, alone, isolated, I would say, namely, as if you were in a shaft, to put a darkness onto your soul, which is a very etheric statement. What he's talking about, who are you, waxing poetic? What are you, Dylan? They'll scoff at like maybe your statement, so you feel unheard, and there is a disconnect. Then you might really vacillate on that, and then make it very important that people understand where you're coming from. And you can spend months or decades in that upward struggle and kind of following more into these sort of caverns of abyss, and then growing isolation and just sort of coping. And so what I want to discuss, especially for people who have been what you would now call survivors, they're in their own class. They now had, tens of dozens of people volunteer to come together to provide assistance to this community who is witness and personal loss, of a particular individual, people who they came to the parade with, they did not leave with, and put these people into what should have been a wonderful, familiar, jovial, special American pride of holiday where people really of all walks of life come to endear, especially certain symbolic moments, such as the flag, such as patriotic music, that you only hear once a day, a year. It springs something unique in everybody's soul. That is the gift of the American dream. It's sort of that, what I would call on an energetic space, that which is sort of in the solar plexus of the American who really wakes up to value the freedoms. Like they really are understanding the clarity of the liberty that it really has given them. And then they want to protect. They don't want to exploit. However, what we have witnessed then on this 4th of July parade gathering, 10:14 a.m. on the 4th of July in Highland Park, people were completely stunned, just completely taken asunder, completely out of nowhere. They had experienced this level of fear, which just the immediacy is to send you running. That's the fight or flight. So you can see videos in the news of everyone running, and they are running away, and then those that are meant to protect and serve are going towards. And if you will notice then, what I'm trying to help you understand is for our viewers who have been here a long time, who have suffered like in not feeling heard, have been told that they're crazy, there's something wrong with you, why don't you get a life, why don't you get over it, why don't you, and they're not really hearing, they just want to sort of put a blanket over you and tell you to do something, why don't you just do something else? They don't quite understand the gravity of the hurt and the wound, just as these people who were witness to this specific horrific negative event where all of a sudden the hopes and dreams and colors of that day were temporarily robbed from them. So that experience, that level of trauma, is the level that people who have, those who are psychopathic, narcissistic, even the borderline in their family, it creates this terror, this abyss that one is supposed to not name but live within, this very trepidatious, really strained level of relating, sometimes for the reward of just the lack of pain or to help alleviate the pain of another, which goes to the tune that most people and a lot of research have assigned that psychopaths, particularly, and those who are narcissistic, people who are highly self-absorbed, into themselves, their own goals, often to the expense of others. See, that's the main, blip of the equation. You can follow the American dream, pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, as this is an inalienable right, but to the exclusion of, not hurting others to get there. That should be like a caveat that should have been woven into the flag, the Constitution, because unfortunately, there does exist, as Dr. Robert Hare, out of Madison, Wisconsin, who wrote the Hare checklist in his study of incarcerated psychopaths. So many people who are psychopathic do become, their lives do end in incarceration because of their lack of conscience and their violation of regular rules, laws, procedures, and protocols. They don't feel inside that it applies to them. And they, from a psychopath testimony, they will say that they feel it gives them sort of a superpower to, quote unquote, get away with certain things, live a certain way, have a specific income, break specific rules, be unfaithful to specific people, having their cake and more. All that, a bag of chips and an overnight, travel package to Tahiti for 2 or more. I mean, so in other words, it goes to level maybe that you're the original and first witnessing. So what I'm getting at here is to help you heal, is to understand that you are part of this community, such as you see when it happens en masse. So in numbers, in a place like a community where we have this situation, this very fluid, volatile situation, which resulted in the loss of human life, in the injury and scarring of others, and as news reporters are reporting it, will scar this community for generations to come. And it's kind of, and they make these things, it's inalterable, the hurt that they have caused. And I want to say right here, what about you? So what about you? You also, I can say, if you are on this channel, unequivocally, it is because you have been dealt a card of hands that had a lot of misplays, fudged plays, cards of deception, a lack of communication in rules that you are not privy to, being on the same meaning or interpretation in a vocabulary was not, satisfactory, or basically I want to say in the positive, meaning where it is pure. There's not all this tit for tat, or I gave you this, you gave me that, and there's all sorts of other emotional pitfalls that can be set in sometimes these situations, these emotional, mindful situations. Forgive me for getting into the Diet Mountain Dew. I know it's so bad, but it's where it's summer, sometimes I have to give myself a little bit of extra refreshment around the holiday, whatever it means around the holiday for you. It might mean pop, chips, pretzels, a barbecue, going to the beach, going to the swim hole, going to a special field or somebody's backyard who always does, or maybe you've got a communal get-together, which is really big in your town, and your town might even be known for it. The 4th of July, what I'm getting to, and this tragedy on this specific day, is there's so much packed into this day for healing, for people who have seen this and to have been felt isolated. In other words, feeling that they were in a class of their own. People might even said, "You're too cool for school. What's wrong with you? Why don't you just get over it?" Well, if we see, if we were to tell that to the people who we could see with our own eyes, something similar to what had been done onto us, and the experiences akin and parallel too. So these become brothers and sisters when we hear the news now in the mass media stating that this community will be scarred. They will, never forget this. They will forever take this on into their legacy. This is life altering, and it's a time for healing. So now news is in on it, and I'm just saying we can see on the macro level what is in on the micro level. So for our people, who have been here on the channel for some time and have experienced this level of horror, of having their very life or the existential threat of their I am sort of ripped away, stolen, removed, deleted from your hard drive, deleted from your heart. You can see people of this say that this is heartbreaking. I know for myself, on the very day of this, I did not want to go to sleep until that individual was apprehended. I'm flipping to all of the channels. Is this guy, found? And he laid it down, like a ballet dancer, making a graceful move, as if this is just part of the orchestrated dance. He didn't pull up any fight. It was, it's almost as if he was like prepared and imposed, as if this was his final I don't want to say bouquet, but his final what do I want to say? His final, not episode, it's gonna, but his final finale. In other words, he's wanting to become as significant as the day of this immemorial of the United States for itself as a country, as a whole. In other words, doesn't chop up only people in California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Texas celebrate. I mean, it's an all in, and it's in your heart. So what I want to talk about first is, of course, for healing for these people, and the preponderance of how devastating could someone be so uncaring, so what you would consider vapid or unfeeling or unconscionable. And we're here not to diagnose or treat, but what we're stating oftentimes is that it's as if there's this transformation, and there's a typical, I would say, quality or characteristic of those who are psychopathic is their ability to be extremely calm under pressure. And we talk about this on the channel, how oftentimes this quality that they possess, those people who are psychopathic or self-professed psychopath, will advise you. They will tell you this is how it is, and the mistake that other people make is, they'll tell you, people make the mistake that we all think alike. In other words, as Dr. Robert Hare would say, that there are among us these interspecies predators that, and I don't want to put this sort of as a character in a book. This is, what I'm just saying, that there is information about here that I want to help thread together so it can be like a lifeline, like you've got the ropes, as if you've got like a handle on this now. You got the maneuvers. You've got the know-how, how to navigate the extremely dark or murky waters that you are thrust into, that you did not know existed, within what I always call your inner real estate. So, and I talk about how important that is, that inner landscape, that interior, and it goes down to the very seat of your confidence, your I am. And those people of Highland Park who are looking for healing and help, now as I kind of interweave this for our viewers to kind of come into this community that has now been publicly, nationally recognized, people are coming to them for volunteer to say, we want to help, we want to provide solace, we want to provide support, and they want to come together as a community. Of course, do you see their need to heal through this and what is required? You can see it in natural motion. For a lot of our viewers, they had experienced this on a personal, individual level, up front, close, personal. Other people discarded, devalued, or invalidated their experience, said it's not like that. So just as people who have now seen the people of Highland Park, they've witnessed the event with their own eyes. You can see how that completely symbolic day, and we're going to get to how important that meaning is for healing, because I really feel in my study of this population and of this very specific traumatized state. In other words, in the United States, and we talk about a lot of parallels on this channel, but I really want to have applied psychology here in studies. I always want to make sure this is applied and specifically helps people. Otherwise, what's the use of research in a jar or in a lab? What are we going to do with it? How is it usable? So it's very important parallels, I feel, in healing. So when we talk about this level of trauma, oftentimes people have not been to before, a state of experience. We talk about in the United States, there's different states and there's a different experience for each state. Arizona feels different than Florida, that feels different than Kentucky, or that feels different than New York or Illinois and Chicago. So there's a lot of different states. So once you can acknowledge within your own self that there's an external that plays the role to develop what you would consider your inner state. And to a certain degree, people vacillate and have a changeability and impressionability and openness, and then vulnerability to these states, either to draw in the positive from this, or some might be able to navigate, put out the pleasure, pain response and go strictly there for business, and then they feel nothing. These people are, have sort of turned off the emotional switch, and these people sometimes are in their own body. They don't get it, they don't feel it. And sometimes we consider these people more psychopathic or narcissistic. People who, if we look on that end of the spectrum, people who are psychopathic, they're lacking in conscience, as Dr. Robert Hare had testified. He spent many years studying the incarcerated, a high degree of incarcerated population he found are of this psychopathic. So this vocabulary is now kind of seeping into national consciousness, as if you will, where it's sort of not talked about or recognized as sort of as something that we talk about, or we can kind of encapsulate and see the emotion set in, and then how healing or hurt can be done into a community, a nation, a vast continent, or really specifically the individual. So what I want to get and air out there, to sort of air out the laundry for people who have been up close and witnessed this, you are not feeling the same today in your level of safety that you did before this event. In other words, it really does change your inner landscape. It's as if your what I call your inner real estate, is just taken out. There is no structure. There is no hope. Where does this go? Where is it redirected? Where you were looking before, that target is down. In fact, you see nothing but, you feel just a heaviness. And you feel that you almost lose your senses, your sensibility. The grief can be overwhelming. Not eating, not sleeping, why, the questions, the reoccurring thoughts that go through those people's minds and hearts, like people who have said it's heartbreaking. So this is the words. These are the words that we need to grow in articulation and grow in a new sort of cohesiveness, not only as a community of healing, but for the people that, as a nation and a global movement, that we now see these things that are like behind a lot of closed doors, that aren't sort of put out there, the real, true, how to recognize threat, how to understand what are the gears that work behind these people, what is operating here, like the Oz the movie. Who is operating the strings, who's trying to manipulate what is seen, and these different things. And so but the level of this inner state, oftentimes, now after this event, what I want to kind of have people see, that now there's a coming together of an en masse large group of people who have been frightened. They don't want, all the other holiday events were canceled. I mean, there's a lot of recognition. Something is wrong. There's something serious awry here. And so in the same, I want to give to you that level of urgency and attention and of rescue and of tools to help you are out there. But oftentimes this happens to the individual, and the result is isolation, and as if no one gets me. And then you get a label that other people who don't get you, have given you. And then you have to, a lot of people, I hear, comments on the channel that they feel is in their healing that they're becoming this terrible person, narcissistic, something who has vengeance, self-absorbed, they don't know, they feel, what am I becoming? Are these then questions? Which of course I would feel that those people who have experienced this tragedy are in a community here, and to be here as a tool for healing, in fact, even in this segment. So what I want to sort of emphasize here is that there's this immediate sort of shock and awe, where there's what we would call an exposure. So this had occurred, and as a moment of healing, I kind of want to get to some answers for healing first, and I want to do it on the abstract. I want to give this to you in terms of what we would call the symbolic, what we would mean as symbolism, as recognition. It holds a specific place in your heart. So, like the American flag, rippling in the wind, the special color of red, white, and blue. So what does it look like to you? If there was an imposter, you'd say, no, my American flag. And then how do you feel, when you see the American flag? Do you pledge allegiance to it? So I'm kind of, we've got a lot to talk about, but we want to sort of set that part aside, a little bit more of understanding the sort of what I would feel the profile of people who have been wounded in this particular way that has a parallel to the victims who were all in attendance and all in witness, in the local area and via the digital platform. So that feeling of, maybe they've been there and their first reaction is, oh my, we all have a similar automatic response. So that automatic response is what I want to sort of help, for you to understand. And we're going to so for people to understand all the trauma, we want to understand that it belongs to that individual. And there's something that they can't take from you. And this is where we want to kind of go. But the levels of abyss, of terror, of alone, of not being able to focus, incessant thoughts, feeling of I'll never be able to come back from this. I'm life altered change. These are the things that you feel, and you might even begin to pronounce. This is real. This is a state of shock. In fact, it was described in the news as shell shock. So I think that's what that if we want to give it a name, shell shocked just stood in disbelief. But in a state like of disbelief that you have not experienced before. Such is an encounter with our viewers here that most other people, if you had encountered this exactly the same with a group of others, it might be different. You would have each other for, camaraderie. We're on the same page. You saw it, I saw it too, and that's not right. So you've got the validation. Oftentimes these people try to target those people who are vulnerable and who cannot speak up, but I want to kind of get right to the healing, and there's going to be a lot of discourse. To get to the healing, I want you to understand, for those people who have been traumatized, who have been really put into a bad place because of a relationship with someone who is extremely self-centered, what you would consider narcissistic or psychopathic. And really, once again, we're not here to diagnose or treat, but in study of this, we can understand sort of these types of people, if you will. And then, of course, the people then who we would consider who they hurt, who they cause wounds to, who they cause distress to. And so it's never a problem for the narcissist. It's always a problem for others. So that's part of the real difficulty in healing. But I want to give this specific holiday and use this day as an opportunity for healing, because if we put that aside for right now, all your unanswered questions, the images of this person themselves, which might be hard to give up because it's so significant right now, and you're still communicating with that abuser in some way. You're still learning from it. You're still having a discourse because you're still trying to make sense. So even though you might still have this going on, we want to tone it down, set it aside. In fact, even maybe give it a physical object if you need to, like a touchstone, like, and say, like this item right here, this represents, or whatever, a real touchstone, represents all the terror I'm going through, and give it a symbolic, because a lot of what's going on here is the meaning. And if you can then set it aside and say, okay, I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to come back to that. But briefly, I want to understand how to get a foothold in some healing. Like, I'm in a state of grief and I'm grief stricken, and it's not stopping. Like, I'm not going to work today. I'm not going to the party. I'm not going to the beach. I'm not going to the sing-along right now. Like, I've got to work and process through something. So for right now, I want to put that aside, and I want to come and provide a real healing tool, especially on this holiday. And I want you to come back and think back specifically to that image and that feeling of what the American flag it means to you. You might be coming here from Mexico, and it means overcoming a lot of hurdles, a promise to new land, or a freedom to safety and prosperity. You might look at the American flag and say, this is the land of opportunity. I can build a business here. Or this is the land of opportunity. I can bring my family here. Or there's so many great cities here and so many great schools that you can become educated and employed. In other words, there's a great or better life that can be worked on. It might be promised, but sometimes there's, as President Biden, there's no guarantees. So what I want to give here as a healing is think of the American flag and think of some remembrances when you really encountered it a lot. Today, or the maybe up the days up leading to the 4th of July, preparation, getting paper plates, getting flag decorations for your porch, your patio, your home. How do you personally celebrate it? What do you do? Do you put something on Facebook? I'm doing a barbecue where my so-and-so, inevitably there's parades that are celebrating freedom. These what you would call abstract experiences, impersonal, significant states of freedom and what that really means. What does it mean when freedom rings from sea to shining sea? What is that? Or that what we call the abstract, a sort of pledge of allegiance to the flag and the country for which it stands. Allegiance, and so that is like a commitment state, and so there's an allegiance that kind of comes along with this specific holiday. And I want you, as a step of healing, to go into some of those more undisturbed, joyous states. Like, just try to touch base if you can, or if not right now, later in the day or later in the week or in your healing, of what some personal, if you were to carry that flag, or to touch it, or to be handed a flag, such as when you pass and you receive the folded American flag, the family receives that, as a gift for all the years of service. So what could be a deeper honor? So honor, in other words, these are really deep states, that are really sort of very intangible, but are very powerful. And that of empathy, brotherhood, defending and protecting of something like a country, a land for which it stands, and knowing what that is, and then being able to give one's life or have a day of celebration, and to wish an actual country a happy birthday. Like, we're all at your table to say high five, happy birthday, America. And this is it's like to honor those people who have given their lives for these, inalienable rights, which sometimes people take for granted. And these, oftentimes are the intangibles that are sought after to be ripped away. So, but what I want to get back to is that I want you to hold space for those moments. When you actually were maybe a child, you put your hand on your heart. From when you looked up as a child, you didn't know what it meant, but you did it because you knew it was something you should feel, and it meant something bigger than you. You couldn't put it into words, but that right now is a state where I want you to capture for yourselves the abstract patriotism, love, family, the coming together of people in a community for a block party. Everybody pitches in. People will maybe have a birthday cake for the nation, for United States, something we can all love in our own way. The gift of all the religious freedom. This might be a religious holiday for you. This might be very sacred and special, and you might have family who are service people. But that day of freedom, and oftentimes it means to enjoy the weather that America gives, the United States gives, and this playfulness, this coming together as community, this innocence. So in other words, when we're right at that moment, when we're at our finest glory, I want you to capture that and really have what I would call as a touchstone for this right now on your healing journey. I talk about this oftentimes on my channel, but for people who have been through this tragedy, it's just like it's still fresh and raw. It will get better. The people who I want who have been with the channel for some time, and you see how communities can come together and understand that these people have been witness to and experienced something, that was not to, that they found themselves completely unprepared for. Although there were guards, almost like your own higher purpose, your inner inner compass, when you really get it back into your solar plexus, which oftentimes is robbed from you, when you experience that sort of inner core of strength, and what we would even consider the existential I am, this oftentimes is ripped out away from the person. This is the terror. This is the tragedy, the existential loss of I, the self, or what I can become. That very experience is very torturous, because it feels like you don't know what the next moment or hour brings. It's a state of being brainwashed, manipulated. And so what I want to say to those people, and to look then again and put back to glory and honor, what is really it mean, and to see why that this whole abstract coming together, and what that, and holding space and sort of really drilling down and getting that back within you, because that space needs to be honored, recognized, and protected once you have encountered a psychopathic injury, such as this is sort of the gold. This is sort of those, this is the Saudi Arabia for someone who is psychopathic, is to because they go after others who possess in abundance a deficit for which they have. So oftentimes they will target people, events, and situations that are at their best point, their highest point, to be their best, to be declared, to come together for belonging, their I am. It's usually an I am experience that they are witnessing, what Abraham Maslow would call self-actualization, but it's what I would call a higher human state, after your needs for food, shelter, etc. have been made, and then you can arise to these higher states and self-actualize, become an artist, become a gardener, become a great, teacher, or a great computer programmer, or whatever it is that you really become the best as, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be professional. It can be spiritual. It can be in your knowledge. It can be learning your emotions. You might be very good at intrapersonal, meaning with, understanding feelings within and being there for others in spaces where others cannot occupy, that they can't be there. They just, their bodies, their heart doesn't open as wide, to be there for these people that oftentimes the people of higher, like who are narcissists or psychopaths, say, you aren't worth my time. You are worthless. And they discount, minimize the experiences, the I am of others. And this creates what is a psychopathic injury, I would say, where it really hits you at the level of existential, meaning where you exist. this is very serious. This is not, this is not oftentimes a place, an island that you want to be, especially at your optimal, finest, best moment. This is like psychopathic gold. This is kind of like what they shoot for because of a deficit, just to sort of, when I get back, and I really want you to put as preliminary healing is for you to attain a state that you would consider one of your own finer states. Like, when are you brought personally into the finer states of your being? Seeing the Grand Canyon, seeing an orange grove for the first time, seeing a sunrise in a new hotel, going to other areas and eating different types of food. These are your existential and your I am, and where you really feel maybe good and positive. But there is sometimes an association of discomfort or fear, but eventually it comes that it'll probably manifest in your life and become away from that discomfort or fear, because that takes a toll on the body itself and does not and inhibits life. It hinders life. It creates sort of a darkness or a nutritive sort of soul heaviness, that instead of kinship and a true bond. So there's a psychopathic bond, which we'll talk about later. But for healing, I want people to, one of the first then steps is to really understand about you. So when you think, or if I think of some really fine or exciting moments, first stumbling upon somebody maybe playing their instrument, and it was outside, they were getting ready to host a wedding or something, and the music was just, you go, wow, that, or just something, maybe you saw a great, tree, or something where you have these abstract moments, you go, wow. Or maybe in a person, I really, so these abstract feelings, things you get excited for, holding hands, making someone a meal, or having a hot chocolate together, certain bond and those moments. A psychopath, as people have studied and understood, is that they have a lack of that state. So it's kind of a cold, darker, and vacuous place, meaning when they do, it is a portend or a pretending, meaning they can pretend as if very well, to a degree I would say that is better than the bulk or the rest of society. And for healing, is to know and to learn, if you have encountered this, to see that you have a huge community, but to realize that those tactics and that deficit, that horror, I'm going to say that doesn't have to belong to you, that you can give that back to the source from whence it came from, and basically make an internal decision that you need to send it back. It does not belong here. I do not need this. And to vocalize that as a tool of healing, because oftentimes that's a targeting where, they want to see people in that reactive mode. To them, that's a dopamine, because they have a deficit, of what you would consider, because of anatomical features. There's a smaller amygdala, and studies have shown that this creates like a lack of experience of fear. So, in other words, they are not afraid to do, become, or behave what most people would be very too afraid, too fearful of, would not do. And those run all sorts of different, those manifest in all sorts of different ways, whether it's business, company, politics, a family system, a work, a marriage, wherever you might encounter it. I would say a lot of our viewers have encountered this on a one-to-one basis, and not like as an immediate group, such as we saw or would see in that sort of experience where people are completely, set into that fight or flight mode. So it's a real, because you can then see these mechanisms taking place. You can see then the fast heart rate, the breathing, the crying, the grief, and, realize that all these people, and then the disbelief, and then there's even worse if you lost somebody, or if you were, physically touched by this. So, it becomes something to understand that because of this deficit, it enables these types of people to do things unto others, and oftentimes they will then target and try to, what I want to say is try to remove these abstract states which you inhabit, which they do not contain. So for healing's sake, so for like a first, like an amazement, is to realize that you have within you a capacity which they do not have within them. And you might have been labeled or judged for this, or made a target or a victim because of your ability to have a heart. To basically, I would say, is when you see somebody upset or hurting, you want to be there to assist or rescue, but you don't realize that in doing that, you dig the hole even deeper for yourself. The more you try to be there, in your life to alleviate their pains, the deeper your hole is dug. So, in other words, and for people who are healing from this, I would say part of your healing, number one, is maintaining and have gratitude within your heart that you have the ability to grieve and mourn and feel the pangs of true hurts. And that this is a true gift of an emotional state within you. And it's going to get lighter and like literally in its brightness and its resolve of its heaviness within you in time. But I want you to see that there's nothing that you did to provoke this sort of narcissistic injury. There's nothing you did to provoke this psychopathic injury. There's nothing you did wrong to evoke this state, to interact. So, to experience either one time, that dramatically, or, many times over the course of several days, months, and years. Which then will become, that becomes a real ingrained exposure to very gradual dissemination of your freedom, of your joy, of your celebration, of your ability to look up and forward, and to have that connection with the flag. It's that closeness that they want to separate. You cannot connect with the American flag. What could be a more grievous hurt that someone could try to assail you of? Who would try to take that very, so I really want to sort of focus on the positive here, because we really want to do alchemize, and we want to understand those cavernous moments. But for some period of time, maybe you don't want to be, in those cavernous moments for too long. Maybe you want to put them away as sort of like, like for your own, sustenance, sanity, and sustainability. You want to get to like a foothold and a fingerhold, and get some grip on some things where you have more control of that internal real estate, and know how to be calm and to be in the states that oftentimes the assailant does not want you to be. So it's very difficult that you then now have to be your own support system in a way that you've never been before. So it's like, it's very much, it requires all attention unto yourself and healing. And so I would say, when we talk here on the channel, and for people who want to heal, do you see how indelible this person, this assailant, would want to remain in the minds of people? How it would be very difficult to take your mind off of them or what they said. for obvious reasons. So I mean, we can go more into it, but do you see also then that this on a gradual, so for those people who have been in relationship up close and personal with such a damaging person, but no one else sees it. They feel that, there's crazy making going on in their own environment, their own workplace, and there's this very difficult meaning that people don't get it, other people don't see it. These people are masters of disguise. They can, just like the assailant who put on a disguise, they're masters of appearing as if they're a priest, appearing as if they're a business owner, appearing as if they're married, appearing as if they're a father. And we're talking an astrophysicist. It goes to really what you would consider the unbelievable proportions. Like you can't believe that how could someone who never studied law end up a judge? It's those sort of things where it's like papers are redone, pictures are moved around in houses, all sorts of different changes of eye color, ways of talking. These types of people, they have a deficit of those internal and then gratitude states. So like truly having gratitude. So when you say like, thank you, you can mean it. Like there's a meaning when you say I love you, and what that meaning grows with you in time and then deepens, but it's those types of people who play games with your emotions, and people, they're just playing with your emotions. It's not funny. When other people to make light of what you're going through, you could just go and keep going. It's imagine. So as you can see, people who go through tragedy, I just want to validate for our people who've been through narcissist or psychopathic injury, is that it has a life-changing effect. And it's not like you coming from a state of weakness saying that. When I'm trying to say, there is nothing that you did wrong to provoke or incur that injury or that treatment against you. There's not one thing that you did that was like causative and then this was your effect. So for people who need room to forgive themselves, there's nothing wrong with you loving someone. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting to be in a family of trust and safety and communication. There's nothing wrong with going to a parade and wanting to go there and celebrate your community. There's nothing wrong with having a flag flying in front of your house and pledging the allegiance for which it stands, and bringing that word back into your vocabulary. What does this authenticity mean? What is your appreciation for the ground that you stand on? Have you looked at too many Starbucks? You're looking at your stomach or something else, and you're forgetting about, the patriots, the people who came to colonize, despite whatever violence or warshed or, here we are now, this is where we're at now. This is our advances. These are our progresses. What I'm trying to describe for our viewers is for you to realize that you have an ability and an abundance. All the people who were at the parade have an abundance of celebration, of support, of patriotism, of belief, of participation, of the positive. So these were all the emotional states, and so these are the smiles, happy for no reason, proud of your country, proud of for which it stands, and knowing that that's an evolving thing. And when if you put your hand on, an American flag that was, perhaps a gift from the military to a military family in their passing ceremony, what does that mean? That's a state of honor. And to have things like appreciation for yourself, for all your efforts, those internal B states, I think, are going to be really a place of healing for you. And it's oftentimes these, what you might consider now far reachable states, These are allowing states, which you might let in little by little as a lever. And I call these recovery dates for our viewers who, you can go out for a couple hours and be as if and feel neutral and feel the way you want to be without judgment and without labels, and then begin to face the world as that new person, as if it's like coming out of a cocoon. For people, I would say who, if you people who question, am I in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic or psychopathic? I mean, you can just ask yourself, was it injurious to you? Was it trouble for you at your finest moments? Do you find that there's a lot of inhibitory climates that were created, and that your own internal real estate suffered as a result? In other words, you had a violation of boundaries. You had an experience of violation of your, not only your inner space, but a violation of your heart. And once you get that violation, it's very difficult to sew up the fence again. It's very difficult to know that your boundaries are strong for the next tidal wave. Are you ready for the next criticism or judgment, or a person who thinks they're going to get away with treating you like that? And you learn to compose and hold space for yourself as a new skill. This is all part of healing. And getting into the level where you can then stop labeling things and just get to a state of non-labeling is kind of like the where we want to go. But realizing that part of the healing journey is realizing a little bit of the profile of these types of hurtful people, and what is it about their profile in particular that is a causative factor for so much harm, either unto an individual or in mass. Basically, number one, I would say, is a lack of conscience, meaning they don't have a sense of right or wrong. They don't care about boundaries, whether it be going into someone else's work office, buddying up with someone in marketing to get something done, doing, trying to, at your time when you need to focus, finding it's being very disruptive, finding they always need the attention. You can't focus on your life. That you have to be thinking about them all the time. These are, oftentimes people don't even know that these are unnatural or disease states that I feel are causative states of the trauma exposure. So it creates, I would say, this feeling within the class of people who are exposed to these types of people. And there are tools, oftentimes not in the place of healthcare. In other words, if there might be like grief counselors or something, but it's not oftentimes at this level. If it's a spouse, if it's a community, if it's where you live, if it's out your front door, or if it's at your office, it's at your school, it can be treacherous. It can be, especially when you don't know sort of the profile and what these people do and how to get out of that shock and into articulation and to sort of aligning with and being healed, being able to dissect and understand enough to be separate and distinct from, and not take on or certainly own any of their tendencies or their provocations or energies. And I know that this is like what we call quantum field of healing. It might sound too far off to people. Basically, we just need results, and the quantum field basically is where it cannot be broken down any further anatomically, and to realize that you actually inhabit that space, that's that could be a divine space. And can you occupy that? Can you allow yourself to, so you can get a new grip and perspective on things? Realizing that one of the telltale symptoms, I would say, of a psychopathic wound is they want you to be thinking about them all the time. is the number one thing. And a lot of people in the beginning, they assume this as love bombing, or assume it's a first stage of love. I can't stop thinking about you, texting you, dreaming, la la, goo goo, whatever you go into, you get into this flood of feel good chemicals, the dopamine, you start becoming bonded, in love. Oh, there's nothing better. This person, is the answer to your prayers, or, there's usually this feeling of bonding that is very close. And they're able to sort of understand and become and metamorphosize and become according to meeting of your needs, and being as feeling closer to you than anybody else. But the further couldn't be further from the truth. So that's the problem, is that they have a disguise of persona. Jung has used this term, but it's to understand that these people have certain characteristics, and to know a little bit about them. Not that you want to learn to think about them, but you need to understand them in order to sort of get focus back, and value yourself sort of in a way that shines brighter and bigger than this type of injury, because the injury can involve so many systems. Even your own, your heart, your navigation system, your mind, your ability to think, plan, dream, have relationships, all that becomes dissembled. That is a true shock state. And people, it's really horrific. It is a very scary, brainwashed place to be. In other words, this individual will exert these kinds of forces, and they don't feel bad. To understand the psychopath is realize that they just observe certain things, for them, it's purely observational. So when people try to sort of grieve, or and understand that there are certain energies that belong to this person that don't belong to you, and namely for you to announce, and that is okay, for you to not want to inhabit states of disbelief, of paranoia. These are all states that they, that you can't, understand and process things until maybe you talk to them, or there's all these other excuses. So realize that the state of healing has to be, I feel, which can be very helpful, as an internal, realize that you have an internal real estate that cannot be touched by these assailants at all. This is sort of your own, this is high priced commodity, as well as your time, I think, is your other commodity. But what I would like to instruct is that unfortunately there is a huge deficit, particularly I would say on the global, meaning the abstract and imagery. So they don't have the same experience of imagery, like the American flag, or the heart emoji, or the smile emoji, or whatever all the emojis that we use that most people do. Like, what a smile means, yay, happy, sad means I'm sad, sick with a mask means I'm sick. These are certain feel states that we feel and that we will give. We're like, I want to hold hands. So, or, and then having these sort of human bonds and connection for real. So knowing that these types of individuals who are psychopathic and narcissistic, they don't inhabit or embody these same states of bonding or attachment to others. They have a bonding and attachment disorder. I would say this is different from being isolated, being alone, being victimized, or being shy, or something like that. These are people who you can never please. They use, abuse, and move on as if nothing happened. And then so a telltale sign is that these people are really, really too cool, calm, and collected under pressure. So, when most people would be, really uncomfortable or feel a state of tension, these people don't feel any tension. So they feel from studies of psychopathy, they feel that this gives them some sort of superpower, and they might say, well, I can use this for good, and I want to, or I can use this for this, and whatever it is, I feel that individual decides, but it's because there is this deficit that they try to rob or target those who have that intangible in abundance. So if you can have some gratitude or reflection about yourself, chances are you're happy, go lucky, really have pride and like certain ideals about you that you always strive to, and that this was not mirrored back to you. Something different was taken away. You weren't allowed a full experience. You were hindered. It's kind of like an eclipse. These people tend to sort of overshadow others, almost like an eclipse over the moon or the sun. They try to sort of be, they kind of serve as a block, because they can't celebrate certain types of people or certain types of situations. It makes them feel very threatened. They feel so. One thing you don't want to do with a narcissist is challenge them, which of course I feel very bad about the state of not only, the world that's going on in large, but, it's just, it's very important, I think, for people who have been touched and for healing, is to know certain things, sort of, if we can encapsulate a couple things, that to healing, you're going to need to know a little bit about this profile, and namely the effects, so you can identify some of these symptoms that you experience and know the causative factors, that can be healing and provide relief, that you own yourself and you have abilities that are above and beyond the person who has tried to exploit you. And knowing that, you might say that's a given, but that you might understand in terms of healing, why do they target, is because you personally possess something that is unique and special, that is desirable, that they don't have, and that they oftentimes can feel challenged when they see that, or say, I want to learn and study that up front, so they can then become a better imposter to fit in. So that's the lives of what these people do. They sort of metamorphosize into different types of people. You'll see them here, and they seem very different than where they are over here. And then they can lead double and triple lives, and also sundry different things. But namely, what I want as a sort of a piece of healing is for you to also have and obtain something like a touchstone for yourself that, brings back your existential question, which is like, yes, I am. They try, and to realize that the hurt that you're feeling oftentimes is as deep as what we call the existential. Can I get over this? Will I be able to exist? Will I function? Can I put words to this? Will people understand me? Because oftentimes you won't be able to do a lot of the other things that you were doing very comfortably. Drive, work out, cook, become healed enough to enter into other new relationships without the wound still being carried on your sleeve. So you're only going to know yourself how long you've carried that wound on your sleeve, and to what degree has it healed. And then can you kind of recapitulate and say, okay, I am willing, even though this is so real, I am willing to heal, and I can heal, and it's okay for me to succeed and heal. Oftentimes there's like a survivor's guilt when you're sort of, because you realize that you weren't a satisfaction to one of the original relationships. Maybe you could not, it's not even that you couldn't get together, but you couldn't remove the negativity of, or you couldn't stop the judgment and criticism of, and those having these impacts, and saying, because the narcissists, they always want others to reflect them, and relationships, they want it to be as an extension for them. So they feel very good to speaking with other people who they feel are at their level of accomplishment or better, and then they tend to minimize people who do not make them feel that way, because they feel very challenged. If there's attention taken away from them, they feel, I think that they sort of, that people are going to see them for who they are, and that this might be a problem for others or something. So they will really do a lot to prevent that from happening. So there's a lot of manipulation and dynamics that go on, which people basically can be played very much like a puppet. In other words, moving to their dance. So for healing, it's okay to say, I'm not going to move to their dance, and that is okay. And I can reclaim my own land, and that is okay. I can reclaim and really get my own feet and be stable and communicate again without fear of rejection or criticism or whatever, having to explain and justify yourself for anything and everything. Because that's where the wound is. It's at the existential. It's at the I am. And also at the level of safety and trust. So if we can get right down to something which I think is the number one thing a psychopath will try to steal is safety and trust and peace and harmony. There are certain states that they are abhorrent to them. And so those states are very then important for other people, or that they require support, meaning that they require engagement in specific ways, and engagement not in other ways that are wrought with lies, violence, trickery, deceit, checking out, negligence, or whatever the negative. Usually there's verbal negativity going on, and really what becomes known in psychology is a confirmed negativity. So those people who experience the tragedy, I feel you're going to be able to heal and really, get up to speed. If you utilize some tools, get to know a little bit about this type of person. What is their profile? The fact that they don't have a conscience, they don't feel fear, they have certain changes in their anatomical structure in their mind, their amygdala, and they're very sensitive to dopamine, meaning the reward chemicals. So they get rewards from sort of creating sort of situations that get their heart beating. So I feel, this is my own observation, is something, they will create something that gets their heart beating as a sublimation or as a substitute for relationships. In other words, what gives them a thrill. I think a psychopath rage, they have aggression and rage, and then sort of the absence of, and then it's all a persona thereafter, a falseness, a pretending as if, and it's not just, oh, I'm gonna, look good for work today and dress, for the role. It's more like, a falsification of everything from the ground up. These are the people who see that they have, education, who move pictures around in their house of people who they say are their family, and then move in a whole set for another set of family, have another marriage, have another job, are a spy here and a telltale there. I mean, they do all sorts of things to keep themselves stimulated. So it's a high, and when a psychopath gets stimulated, they get hyper aroused, meaning studies have shown that their dopamine receptors, their feel-good neurochemical is like on high, soaking it up. It's just like they're really, I guess they're really into it. And oftentimes they have a compulsion to do that for some reason. Oftentimes I think it's, it's what they do. Otherwise, they need to blend in. They need to have a decoy of a job, a decoy of a family. They need people. It's not that they fall in love. I think that they need people, supply. They need people to fulfill their acknowledgement. And oftentimes it creates a deficit of attention to other people who need it most. So, you really do deserve and need attention. It's okay for you to be attended to. It's not okay for you to be judged and and to be spoken to with hurt. or spite, or, so that's why you have to realize it's very important for you to know who are your naysayers, and who, and what that voice looks like in your own inner real estate, and have them move out. Your inner real estate is going to need to get shored up and protected. And you can do that in just stating I am, and writing that down 100, 1,000 times. If it's really difficult right now, you can, I am safe. I am safe. And have an emotement, going out and saying, I'm going to have an emotement. I'm going to feel safe for 1 hour. What does this feel like? Because the psychopath, part of their antics and learning about them is they want people to be sort of on this teetering of fear. They want it to be in people's mind all the time. They move and shift. They notice and say things that most people don't. Again, it's kind of like, and they tend to put people at ease very easily. If they are in business, they can be so, so these qualities, might win them a lot of, you might have these types of people, or know these types of people who have a lot of positive supporters, but they have hurt you, and it's a whole different story for you. Well, just like as you see these people who have been through this, it puts you in a unique group, and you can own that. You can, and not be devastated by it, and not be, not be ruined, not attend to, in other words, to what degree can you process it and say, I am okay with letting go of that confusion or enigma, with which that's the state that they want to keep me in, so that I'm constantly sort of in constant contact with them, or that troubling energy. So you need to develop some very strong discourse and writing skills, I would say, and attend to some of those basic, I can focus, and then stating some very and then, something like an am, can, will, and speaking these into existence, and oftentimes saying them out loud, so you can then hear the resonance, and you can see and be a source of self-support, especially when that, trauma has created a real cavern, which can be very deep. And you can decide, I would say, in the course of your discovery, to say, how deep do you want that to go, and to what degree, can you, through processing and understanding and learning about these people, can you shore that up and say, I am now okay to be in serenity for the rest of my life? And can you have that at that pure state? So there's certain B states that you want to go after. I mean, I think that purity, and sort of that closeness of strength, whatever that means for you. I am the pure. I am strong. I am invincible. And speak these, and you are these, and then have your behaviors reflect this. I am safe, and then do something that shows you are safe. I am, and then do something that, or I need. Maybe you need human contact right now. Maybe you need, someone just to vent. You need someone just to cuddle, be close to. Maybe you need space. Maybe you just need recognition. Maybe you need to write. Maybe, you can figure it out. You can figure it out and create your own blueprint. And it's okay not to be secretive. It's okay not to be secretive with yourself. Don't hide healing from yourself as part of a survivor's guilt or something. Don't delay your healing. But realize, and emphasizing more of the tools day by day that we discuss, especially at that affirmation or that astralmation, level, making your recovery date, really making your healing as a priority and a focus all throughout your day, whether you're walking the dog, whether you're walking the garbage out, whether you're going on a walk to observe and revere nature, wherever it is you're going, take, kind of that higher nature with you and ask for your higher nature to be revealed. Ask for your strength to be revealed. Ask for healing to be revealed. Ask for, peace to be revealed. Ask for, justice to be revealed. And ask for yourself, for your strength to be revealed and your love to be revealed. Ask for these certain things. This is what I want revealed. And you can ask your subconscious of these, and then allow and work the mighty human spirit. I think oftentimes people who have been exposed to these, they feel that their lives are going to be forever changed for the worse. Excuse me. So where's that statement coming from? Is it stating from the lips of the assailant? Understand where those statements are coming from, and beg beg the question and say, is that really true? Or can you actually look with gratitude on all that you are and have, and embrace that and know it's worth protecting? You are worth protecting. We all are, and need to come together in that as a community of validation, and not discrediting, not minimizing, and not just forgetting, but resolving for the good, so that you have articulated it and your body can follow, and vice versa. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and of course, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. I wish and I hope and pray that peace be with you, and peace be with you throughout the day, that it never leave your side, and that it'll be there to tend to your every need. Have a beautiful day.